Hi, everyone. My name is Rabindra Hayashi, and I'm the events production coordinator here at CAAM. I'm so happy to be here with you. We are joined today for a very special Q&A session with Allie Cuerdo, the writer and director of the film All I Want Is Everything. When being good isn't good enough, a fiercely driven teenager indulges in the bad to reach her goals by becoming a drug dealer in New York City's wild underground rave scene. I'd like to welcome Allie right now. So, Allie, hi, Allie. Thanks for being here.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for having me, Rabindra.
Yeah, we're so lucky to have you for this. So just to begin, I want to talk a little bit about the major theme of this film, which is about taking rather than asking for the right to dream big. Can you talk a little bit more about that in your film?
Oh man, isn't that just what we all want? That's the reason I actually named the film. All I Want Is Everything. That's really, I think, what I grew up wanting as the child of immigrants. My parents are from the Philippines. Specifically, my mom is from Manila, my dad is from Mindanao. So it was interesting to watch my parents come to America believing really hard in the American dream. Every single moment of their lives was work hard and everything will turn out okay. And that was really the core of the belief that I had at the beginning of this film. Kind of like Alice, I really believed that if I just work hard and play by the rules, everything would turn out okay. What I learned, and what I think a lot of people learned in 2020, but what I learned over the course of my whole life is that the system that I grew up in was really not built for people like me and for people like my parents. And that the American dream, which was a game that I honestly thought was fair, I really, really believed this growing up, thought it was a fair game. I realized that the American dream that I experienced was really a rigged game in which most people lose. And the
Mhm.
only way I found to win was to break all of the rules.
To make
Not
your own
one, not
game.
two. Right, exactly. Break all of them, overturn the board, and create something new. And so I did this with this film, which, as I told you behind the scenes, Ravindra, but we are actually turning
Yes.
this into a TV series. We're really excited. We're looking for partners now, but we've gotten a great response so far. So you guys are a sneak peek behind what is hopefully going to be a television series. All I Want Is Everything was always conceived as that. And the idea, of course, is that these loving characters that you get introduced to here will have a big stage to play on. So we're really excited for that.
And that's so exciting. I'm so excited to hear that. I'm really excited to see this be developed into something that's like more fully fledged, something that is a lot more meat to it, because there are so many interesting characters between Alice, between young Brian, between Paris. But something else that's really interesting, you're talking a little bit about taking this to, a TV series. Can you talk a little bit about how this relates to your previous work? I think for people who have seen Ulam or people who have seen Dancing on My Own, I think people can really trace a through line through these films. So can you talk a little bit more about your trajectory, both to and after?
Absolutely. And what a great question. I think that the artist always wants to be asked, how does this piece fit in with the rest of your stuff? Like, where is this in the context of my life? Because that's really what art
Mhm.
is, right? Art is all about identity, at least for me. I think
Mhm.
that every project I've done has been me assembling a new way to understand myself. It's just me asking over and over again, who am I? What am I doing here on this amazing planet we call Earth? And so All I Want Is Everything for me is just a very natural continuation of Ulam, which was really me exploring my Filipino American identity. What does it mean to be a child of immigrants who came from a country that used to be a US colony?
Mhm.
What does that mean to really live in the country of the colonizer? How do I decolonize my own mind? How do I really
Mhm.
do that? That's was Ulam. Dancing on My Own was me exploring this aspect of my queer identity. What does chosen family mean? not just the family you were born with, but the family that you get to pick. That was Dancing on My Own. And now we arrive at this kind of confluence between my two identities. We have
Hmm.
the Asian American and the LGBT community. And that's All I Want Is Everything. It's kind of this holy union of everything I am as a writer, as a director, and as a person. And I think that's why it's such an exciting project. So I'm really excited that y'all get to see it. It's a little piece of me. So I'm really stoked.
You mentioned that, and I feel like there are parts of you that like come out in all of these characters. Can you say a little bit more about like, was there one character that you felt like you really connected with when you were making this film?
I can only tell you this, I was rejected from every single college that Alice was rejected from.
Oh, geez.
Because and the high school I went to was really like that. So, there's a lot of me in every single character, to be honest. I
Mhm,
think there's a little bit of my fiery kind of anarchist streak in young Brian. There's a
mhm,
lot of my love for fashion and beauty and glamour in Paris.
mhm,
And there's a lot of my, that little punk kid, that riot girl inside me, that is Alice. Alice is raging against the machine every single day. And I think
mhm,
that, there's a lot in her that I admire. But at the same time, there's a lot in her that I see as a younger version of myself, somebody who
mhm,
really didn't know uh, up from down in a way, because I had really been plunged into a culture that I was not prepared to understand. And that's okay. I found my own way through chosen family, through queer community. I was able to find a world for me. But that's really Alice's journey, right? It's how do I find a version of the world that fits me? They say
mhm,
that you get in where you fit in. So what does that mean for us as humans? Where do we fit
mhm.
in? Because that determines where we get in, whether it's college
Yeah.
or the
Mhm.
rest of our lives.
Yeah, I totally see that. And I think that's something that I really appreciate is there's this moment where Alice realizes that, she thought that she didn't realize she was part of the fight just by existing. And then once she realizes it, she totally changes her perspective of what needs to
Amen.
get done. Um,
Amen. That
I'm,
is the
I'm
truth.
s- I'm so happy that we've been able to talk about this, and I'm so excited to hear so much about what's coming next for this film. But unfortunately, we're running short on time, so I wanted to ask a couple of things first. Is there anything else you'd like the audience to know about this film?
Oh, well, I would like to say that the club scenes were inspired by a very real party that still exists, and I am very honored to be part of this community. It is a party that a bunch of friends of mine and I helped throw in New York. It is called
Hmm.
Bubble Tea, and it is a
Hmm.
real life party where queer Asians rule, but everyone is welcome. And we are doing an event in New York for Pride on June 10th. Save the date. If you happen to be in New York City, come out to Bubble Tea. You will see me there, and I will give you a big, hopefully COVID-free hug. And anyways, that's it. If you want to hear more about my work, please find me on the socials. I'm at Alexandra Cuerdo, and the film will very soon be on at alliwantiseverything.club, which is my favorite new extension. Not .org, .club.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope that everyone who is in the New York area is able to join at Bubble Tea. I suspected that might have been Bubble Tea inspiring that, what do you call it, that sequence.
That's our party, baby. That's our party.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you so much for being here today, Allie.
Thanks for having me, Rabindra, and enjoy the film.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Coming up, we have a conversation with some of the other filmmakers in the Great Expectations Shorts program as they talk about their work. So please stay tuned.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our conversation about Great Expectations. I'm Grace Hwang Lynch, Content Manager at CAAM, the Center for Asian American Media, and I'd like to welcome you to our program today. This is part of CAAM Fest 40, and we have just watched the Great Expectations short program. Great Expectations is a series of short films focusing on decisive moments in life when secret human incongruities bubble to the surface. These narratives profile characters facing those crossroads where they must choose who they really are. We'll be chatting with a few of the makers behind these films, and I'd like to first bring on Asad Farooqui, writer and director and lead actor of Congratulations.
Hello. How are
Hi,
you?
Asad. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being part of our conversation. I've really enjoyed this movie. Actually, a combination of enjoying it and actually like squirming in my seat because it was so uncomfortable to watch, this awkward holiday dinner and these, the judgmental aunties and uncles and the comments about why can't you be like so and so who's a doctor, and I feel like we've all been to this party and we all want to leave.
I agree.
um, Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you came up with this idea. It feels so personal. Maybe
Sure.
because you are also in the movie.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I grew up. I moved to America when I was 8, and we moved here for my mother's cancer treatment. And
Mm.
so it wasn't like the immigrant story where you move to America for greener pastures or something like that. And just growing up during Ramadan, and interestingly enough, it's Ramadan right now, and Eid should happen on Sunday or Monday, so it's quite relevant right now. Is that we'd be invited to these dinners, right? Once you break your fast, and people would invite you, and they'd host these parties. And I just recall going with my parents, really being dragged with my parents to these parties when I really didn't want to go, but I didn't have a choice because I was too young to get out of it. And I just noticed that the men and women were separated, partitioned, in fact, and the kids would just be running around, not knowing what to do. And I'd overhear conversations, and men would just be talking about politics, and women would be discussing the community, things like that. And I figured that, this film can kind of be like an amalgamation of all those parties that I've been to.
Mhm.
But then still kind of have a main character and a goal, and a struggle that I think a lot of I would suppose Asian and South Asian artists, actors, filmmakers can agree with, is that you come from families of doctors and engineers, and it's hard to kind of convince, because we're
We
in the
don't
business of
understand.
convincing.
It's not, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a reasonable life choice.
Yeah, so and not just that, but you're also half the time just trying to convince your parents. It's not even about doing what you love, it's about making sure that you get their approval. And,
Mhm.
I don't think I was any different. So I just thought that, even though I've never wanted to be an actor or anything, but I thought that how about someone who is an actor and is getting measly roles and things like that, and is struggling clearly and is embarrassed to share kind of what he is, and then obviously what happens in the party, he finds out something, which kind of
Yeah.
story into gear. Yeah.
Um, the thing that really struck me is how, even though the specifics, the particular politics that are being discussed are coming from Pakistan, and there's this sort of polarization within the family and circling of the wagons, this kind of us versus them kind of idea, and it feels so sadly universal, and like, it could apply to so many different situations going on.
Well, absolutely. I mean, India and Pakistan have never really been on good terms. Right now is no different. Pakistan, there's a line in there about Imran Khan, the prime minister,
Yeah.
who was just ousted a couple weeks ago. India is clearly going through its own turmoil, especially with treatment of Muslims. And yeah, those conversations take place. But what was more interesting was that a lot of these characters, particularly the two people who visit, are kind of nationalistic, about their,
Yeah, very, very much.
they don't live there. They live in America. They benefit from being in America, obviously, whether it's financially or in other ways, but yet they can't really leave Pakistan in a way. And
They're
it was more,
invested.
yeah, and it was more so to highlight how we cannot leave our roots, no matter how much we try or don't try. But also, it goes to, it speaks about the idea of how a lot of these people, similar people in real life, don't vote for elections that actually do impact them. And so this film was made in Atlanta. And as you know, Georgia was the center of the political universe. I mean, we had a gubernatorial election, which was, certainly wasn't, there were things wrong with it. It wasn't exactly proper or prudent the way they handled it. And then we had the senator runoff, which wasn't that long ago. And so these individuals, even though they're citizens, they wouldn't vote in these elections, right? They'll leave that, but they'll continue.
But they care very much about homeland
Yes.
politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I think that happens with a lot of immigrant communities, and we see that, the family dynamics and that political, the tie that goes back to their motherland, and just, where they feel like deeply invested and connected. We'll talk more about the family dynamics, because I think that all the films in this series have that common unifying theme. Maybe first of all, could you tell us where we can learn more about you online, and then we're going to bring in some other filmmakers after that.
Sure. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's Asad M Farooqui, and that's probably the best way to kind of follow me. And I started it about a year or so ago, so I'm still pretty new to it, and finding out that it's more and more important every day.
All right. Thank you, Asad. We're going to say bye to you for a minute, and we'll see you again a little bit later in the program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Next, we're going to chat with director and writer Emily May Jampel with Lucky Fish. So I'd like to welcome Emily to our room.
Hi.
Hi, Emily. How are you today?
Good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Again, another awkward family dinner. This time, your film Lucky Fish focuses on Maggie, who is a high school student at a Chinese restaurant with her mother and her mother's friend and her mother's friend's daughter. And they seem to have an interchange where it's awkward, and she's being criticized. I did have to laugh out loud at that comment about Sarah Lawrence College. I thought that was a really, really great one-liner.
I'm glad you liked it. Friends of mine who've gone to Sarah Lawrence have found it funny as well.
I think that the general lack of understanding of maybe liberal arts colleges and liberal arts degrees and that kind of pursuit. The thing I really enjoyed about Lucky Fish was that instead of lingering in the conflict and the awkwardness, you take us on a completely different journey. And, you go into kind of this dream sequence where Maggie goes to the bathroom and meets a cute girl that she's been looking at, across the room. How, tell us a little bit about, why you decided this film would look like this.
That's a good question. So this is basically one of the first, really the first short I've made. And so I thought a lot about, it feels like a lot of pressure when you're making the first thing. And I put a lot of thought into what kind of story I want to make and what kind of stories I want to tell as a filmmaker. And I think I just really, maybe after also just very tough years of the pandemic, I was there's already a lot of dark stuff going on and people feel very disconnected. And I was I kind of just, I want to put something a little more like warm and optimistic into the world, but also one that didn't like kind of just like shy. I wanted to still show the kind of feelings of disconnect and kind of darker things to begin with and not like shy away from them, but I also wanted it to be like a really sweet, optimistic film.
Yeah, you definitely achieved that. I feel it's almost feeling like when after the interlude where they're at the fish tank and they're having like this kind of magical dreamlike moment, when you come back, you almost feel like you're wondering if that really happened, if it was a fantasy or did it really happen?
Yes. Okay, I'm so glad that read. The first draft of it, I mean, it was a really short, contained movie, but like the first draft of it, it was a literal dream, and you knew it was a dream. But I kind of then liked the idea of making it real, but kind of feel like a dream, and so I very intentionally wanted to like start in very like a realism kind of feeling in the beginning when they're having dinner with the family, because that's just, I feel like the first half is literally just taken from actual family dinners that we've all been at, where we're just like, ugh, like how long is this gonna go on for? And I don't want to be here. And I think we've all kind of had that. And so I wanted to start there. And then the second half is kind of like as a teen, you're there, but you can't really leave because that's just
it's your obligation. You're there with your family, right?
Yeah, but I was like, oh, but it's a movie, and so for this, you can do anything. And so I kind of thought, like, okay, what if there's one character having this experience, but like, what if there were two people having a version of this experience? And so out of that, like, this possibility of them kind of connecting could happen.
Yeah. And I see that you're also a photographer and very multidisciplinary. You wrote this film and you do performance yourself. And I was wondering how you decide, which aspects of your work that you choose. How do you choose which projects to do next? And what's your guiding inspiration?
That's a good question. I think it's all just really instinct. I think like there are certain times where I'm just like, I really want to, like this story, I was very much, I was like, I've never directed before, but like this has to happen. And that was just very top of mind. And then I think with performance, like that kind of comes out of left field and isn't up to me. So that's been just a nice way. Like I didn't go to film school. And so that's like acting in shorts has always just been something that's been a really like fun way to work on set, that I also, I feel like I learned how to direct through getting to act in other shorts. And also that's kind of what made me want to start directing in the first place, of like being on these projects with other Asian American female, like pretty young people close to my age, kind of doing something similar, and it became less intimidating. Things like photography and writing are nice because they're so direct and they're very instantaneous. And whereas, as we know, shorts or films take so long and they're so expensive, and so having something immediate is really nice for writing and photography, because you just get the photos developed and you have it. But then having something like a film is nice because it's very collaborative and you get to bring all these people in and you get to actually like be on your feet and on set. Whereas, writing and photography, you're kind of mostly by yourself. Yeah. But I like doing all of them. They like fulfill different parts of me, I feel like, as an artist. Yeah.
Great. And we enjoy watching them. So that's wonderful for us. Tell us how we can find out what you're going to be doing next, how we can follow you on social media online.
So Instagram is probably the most immediate one. And my website as well. I'm trying to be good at like keeping it up to date with as screenings and festivals come up. There's a page for Lucky Fish that it'll all be on there.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Emily. We're going to say bye for a moment and talk to another filmmaker, but stay with us because we'll all come back together.
Okay,
in a
cool.
few
Thank
minutes.
you.
All right, bye. Finally, we are going to bring on Hena Ashraf, the director of The Return, which is a deeply personal documentary which turns the lens on herself and her strained relationship with her father, who passes away suddenly during a trip to India. So I'd like to bring on Hena to join us.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. I really enjoyed your film. It was so powerful, and I was just so touched by the story and its intimacy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, and I'm really so grateful and thankful that the film is being seen and is here as part of the 40th year at CAAM. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great to have this film as part of our shorts program. I think one of the things that I was really struck by is that in The Return, it's almost like there's two movies in one. There are two distinct threads. One, the real life story, of the clips that you filmed of your father over the years. And then it looks like you were making a film as well, a fictionalized version of a father and daughter that have a lot of parallels and similarities to your own life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so The Return it was really a response to, what happened to me, my family, to what I was going through. And I come from a narrative background. Like all my previous films they've all been written, they've all been fiction. And a month after my dad died, I wrote a script because that was the thing I knew how to do. And within the script, I actually wrote in archival footage and what I called these scenes that were essentially memories of like key moments that I had with him. And I realized that it was going to be a very process-based film, and it was really about me, like me processing my grief and my relationship with him. And so I was going to be in it. Like I had already started to film myself soon after he passed away, I think, just to document what I was going through, which is something I've always done. Like I've always had to document, whether in writing, in my journal, or taking photos. And then this time is really just by recording myself. And so when we shot those scenes, when we had that shoot, I had a second camera team filming me. Um, and I think it seems like it worked. I think it adds another layer to the film, kind of showing like what is this person going through, and like what is she doing, what is she creating, and why. And then we kind of see in real time my reactions to these scenes being shot, which are basically like I casted actors to play me and my parents. Yeah.
I think it really works. I think it really works to bring you into kind of your mind as you're thinking, how to tell your story, and maybe as you're recalling different parts of your life where you don't have a camera on you, and that you're able to fictionalize it and to create a scene that is based on something that feels, they feel really real and they feel very immediate, and the emotion is definitely there. And there's such a similarity to the emotions that are happening, very directly to you in the other scenes. So that's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, those scenes are actually, I would say, verbatim in a way. I mean, I translated them mostly in English, but in Hindi, Urdu, like the language me and my parents speak. I mean, but those are really some of the things that we said. And so I call the film a doc hybrid film, and I think the reenactments are what people tend to think are like more on the fiction side, but for me, I think the fiction side of it is, I think, in the structure, like the story of that's within the 18 minutes of the film itself. You know, like
Mhm.
there's some sort of like a peace of mind perhaps towards the end. I think though that grief is like an ongoing thing. It's very, very complicated.
Mhm.
And it's like it can always kind of circle back. One thing that's not in the film is that actually, you know, the last couple of years my dad was alive. We actually got along really well, which is really nice. But um, my the people who I collaborated with were saying, you know, that's not really going to help the film or the story. Like, if we veer away from the conflict, you know, like it's not going to be as juicy. So to me, that's kind of like where the hybrid thing comes, or like what's actually more on the fiction side. Yeah,
Yeah. There's always choices in storytelling, right? There's choices of
yeah.
what you kind of focus in on. I'm sure the other filmmakers will have thoughts about that too. So I'd like to give you a chance to tell people how to follow you, and then we will bring everyone back together. So tell us what your social media or platforms are online.
Sure. My website is just my name, henaashraf.com, and I'm on Instagram, henaashraf_film.
Thank you. Um, so at this time, I would like to bring Emily and Asad back, and we are going to have a group therapy session.
Yes, please.
Welcome, everyone. I find it just, really all your films have similar themes, and they are themes that we see a lot in
Mm.
Asian American narratives, and I'm not excluding myself from this. I'm a memoir writer. I write about, similar themes. They feel very familiar to me, and things that, I don't know. Why do we keep coming back around to this? Why is it such a common common subject?
Mm.
This is a question for anybody to, who wants to maybe weigh in and give some thoughts.
Well, I can jump in a bit. I mean, we all come from a family, whatever that family may look like. Families aren't perfect. And so I think for me, there's always material there. And it's kind of like what I've kept returning to again and again and again. I think essentially, like, there's probably a common thread in my films and the scripts that I've written so far, in terms of like, where is this material, really coming from? So, and families are, it's like such a universal thing. So that could be why.
Mm.
Asad, you look like you might have some thoughts that you were about to share.
Yeah, I agree with what Hena's saying. I think, especially considering the Asian experience, I just feel families are just always there. Like, you're not really allowed to go very many places, if that makes sense. You're not as outgoing as maybe you'd like to be, and so you spend a lot of time in, like I said, the bubble, this Pakistani bubble or the South Asian bubble, and that's what you get to know, and you kind of experience America when you go to school. That's what it was like for me. Like, elementary school was America, but when I was at home, I was Pakistan. Because
Mm.
anything and everything was related to that. The
Yeah.
food, music, the culture, the language, the television shows, the movies, and so I think that's why it informs the majority of my overall, I guess, life experience, at least as a youngster, and then as a young adult. I might venture away now, but usually dig into your past for most film material. And since that is the majority of my past, I suppose that's why it's a part of the films.
Have your families given you any comments about your films?
Yeah, I mean, so I told you about approval, and so my father's approval was really important to me. I mean, my mother passed away when I was 11, and so I was in a one-parent household, and so we got into Palm Springs, which is a pretty big festival, and that was a big deal for me, and I really wanted him to go, and he came. My dad did, and it was an experience. Like, he really enjoyed it. He agreed with it. Like, he saw, he saw positivity in it, and he is he's both Pakistani and Indian, so I guess he understands what it's like to be in the middle. Yeah. And it's tough because you're never Indian enough, you're never Pakistani enough, so you don't really belong to either. Yeah. And so that's kind of what the film tackles. Like, that's one of the topics, and so he enjoyed that experience. And then it was, again, just the father-son kind of thing where he found out that someone had, and this is a true story, we watched the film at Palm Springs, we're done, it was 110-degree weather because it was in June, and he found out that someone that he knew passed away, or someone's friend that he had some connection to had never met in San Diego, and he wanted to go and visit, and then I had to drive him for 2.5 hours to go do that, and there were no questions asked. Like, you can't even, I was like, it's 2.5 hours, it's hot, and, but just do it. So there's always material there with him. It's true.
My mom was on my set. Like, she I tried to get her to play the mom in it, and she was like considering it, and then found out that it was like my short, and then was like, no, I think I'm good. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. And so but I found someone else, and so she came as like she's like a background extra, which was like good, but it was funny to have her, like, she was only supposed to come on one day and just like showed up the other day and was like taking photos with the actors, and I was like, you gotta stop. Like, I was starting to tell people what to do, or she was just like, like, that PA, like, are they, like, why are they sitting down? And I was like, so I don't know, like, having your parents on set is kind of a funny experience, but I showed her the final cut of the film, and she was like really happy about it, or said really nice things to me about it, which was nice. I think she was just surprised. She was like, oh, I actually enjoyed it. Like, I really didn't know what to expect. But yeah, I think it was funny. Like, once the film was actually happening, she was very supportive. And like, once she saw it, she was like, oh, this is so great. But I think I remember like several months before I had like put together a team and made it, I was just like, oh, I was talking to like her and my brother when I was at home. Like, I'm like, oh, I was thinking about making a short film. Like, what do you guys think? And they were both just like, what are you talking about? Like, that's a film. Like, that's so much work. I don't think that's a good idea. And then I don't know. I feel like that's just like representative of how, like, at least for me, like, my parents or Asian parents can be, where it's like, if you're kind of like asking for permission to do something kind of risky, they're like, I don't know, like, that's weird. But then once you do it and it's sort of successful, they're like, oh, that's so great. Like, we're so proud of you.
Yeah. That's, I guess, coming from family backgrounds where, I assume none of you have had relatives who are filmmakers or creatives, and in the past, so maybe it's just not something that is a known way of, like, is this a thing that you can do, and you're not going to lose your shirt and end up living in a cardboard box, or
Yeah, I mean, I think it's understandable, the hesitation. I think they essentially want what's best for us. They want to protect us as much as possible. But like, I mean, coming from an immigrant background, they themselves took a risk in migrating or in choosing to migrate. And so I think because they they themselves took such a massive risk. Perhaps they don't want their kids to take risks. But I think sometimes we just need to not listen to them, just be really stubborn. And I think Emily said it so well. It's like they're very hesitant, but then once you do it and it works out, then they're like, "I'm so proud of you," which is nice. You know, it's definitely nice to hear that. Yeah, my family they've seen the film. They are in it. Especially my mum.
Mm-hmm.
While we were filming, she would say like, "Don't film me, like only film me from the side." And I knew she was just kind of like saying that, but I didn't really listen to her. Like she obviously knew, she's being filmed. Like the camera wasn't just here, like it was in front. So it was really interesting. And then we filmed in India, like where my parents are from, in the state that they're from. And so I had always wanted to do that. I never thought I would do it so soon, but that was also incredible to just be in that part of India, and like my relatives there were all on board. I think they were just like, "Wow, you have a camera and a camera team. Like, what's going on?" Like none of them really got in the way. Like they were really supportive of it, and I think saw me as an artist and as a filmmaker, which was really nice. So it felt really good to just be seen in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hena, when you received the news of your father's passing, did you know at that point that you wanted to bring a camera with you to India?
No, I was just like, I was just in shock. I went to India. I hadn't been to India in 10 years, and so my parents went there for a wedding, and he died, and he is buried there next to his parents, which is just incredible. And so I was only there for a week. Everything was so quick, and we just wanted to get mum like back to America, but back to Michigan where my parents lived. And then as I started to make the film, I was like, okay, like I need to go back. I need to go back and film there, and like I think just spend more time there, and just be in order to process more what happened, just because like everything was just very quick. And so we went back later that year, like in November 2019, and which was really good.
I'm curious now, after you have each made a film along these themes, do you feel like, it's something that you've kind of gotten out of your system and, off your chest, or do you feel like you're going to continue to revisit that well and be inspired by these kind of family dynamics more in the future?
I think I think I will like not try. I think I will inevitably re-explore all these things because they're like such a big part of us and like we can't help it. But I'm kind of curious in the next things I make to like not intentionally do it and kind of just have it be maybe imbued in more subtle ways and not like I don't know, explore it from different angles or have it even maybe be something about something totally different, but have it in there in like a more kind of I think just explore it in a different way maybe. Yeah.
That makes sense. Kind of a sub theme or something that's going on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm working on a feature based on this short. It's a micro budget feature, so hopefully we get to shoot this by next year. But there will always be family members, I suppose. It won't necessarily be about this topic, but there will be more locations than just the one location that this film is in. But yeah, I because I found what's interesting is that I found the most fun, interesting, quirky characters whenever I'd visit the mosque as a kid. And so for me, like that's where all the drama is. And unfortunately, we just don't have, I've never really seen films with those characters because I think people who grow up here kind of resent that a little bit and they don't find entertainment in it. And for me, it's like the lens with which you view a film matters, like A comedy to me might be a hardcore drama to someone else, but to me, it's always a comedy whenever I go, because something or another is going wrong at the mosque. People are yelling, nobody can stand a straight line. Everyone's attention. And and then, there's the shoe rack, and people are telling you where to put your shoes on the shoe rack. And it's just a lot of interesting details that are there. And it's always interesting to explore, where do these people come from and why are they acting the way they are?
Well, it's a mixing of the community, right? I mean, you see in a lot of films, like the church or the temple takes a big role, and it's a place where people come together, and there's, leaders and people who are kind of occupy various positions. So I could totally see the mosque having that, potential to be that kind of a site.
Absolutely.
That sounds great. I would love to see that. I mean, every mosque has an auntie who's like the boss lady, always shouting at people. I would love to see this film. For me, I mean, I think my attention is really on my mum these days. And so I think I'm trying to write another draft of the feature script where it's really about untangling the mother-daughter relationship, but has been very affected by, the loss of her, the father, and the life partner of the mother, because that's what I've been going through the last couple of years. So I think that's what I'm probably attempting to now do.
Great. Well, I look forward to all of your work in the future, and thank you for being with us today for our conversation and putting your work out into the world. I think the world is a fuller and better place with all of our stories out there, and just having a multiplicity of narratives is what makes us understand each other better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you who are watching at home, remember that CAAMFest 40 runs through May 22nd. So we have lots of other virtual programming for you to watch. And if you're in the Bay Area, you can visit one of our in-theater presentations in San Francisco or Oakland. And on behalf of everyone at CAAM, thank you again for joining us.